Our next light is going to be our HDR. Okay, so if I go now to my V-Ray frame buffer and I take my light off, it's going to be completely dark. So I'm going to create another V-Ray light, but instead of creating the plane, I'm going to go straight to my dome. And I can actually put it anywhere. This doesn't really matter, okay? And there it automatically creates a dome. So the dome is actually virtual. The size doesn't really matter. You can see that while I scale it up or down. The size is just a virtual thing. So you can actually just scale it up so that it's not on your view and doesn't bother you the wireframe, okay? And right now what it's doing is creating a dome that has the color white around. Okay, so it's pretty much like having a whole white room and kind of like creating this ambient light source. So if I make it kind of like greenish, then it's gonna make it as a green room. So I can put a texture here, and this is actually something that you can do for every light. So if I go to the plain light, I could also put a map. Let's go for the bitmap. Actually, I'm gonna do it this way. I'm going to create a map, a bitmap, and I'm going to go for this diffuse map, and I'm going to drag it as an instance. And if I put it in invisible, I can actually see the map there, okay? So as I said, you can do it for every single light. I'm going to clear it out. I'm going to go to my HDR again. And again, the position doesn't really matter. The scale doesn't really matter. And I'm going to drag there again another map that is going to be my HDRI. And in that sense, I'm going to my materials, and it cannot just be a regular map. It has to be an HDRI map slot. And for that, here in the map options, we have the V-Ray HDRI. So some recommendations regarding your HDRI are that it should really have a high dynamic range. That means that it has about more than 24 exposure values. Okay, and usually most of the free ones don't have that. And what happens when they have a poor dynamic range is that they have poor contrast and don't really give me enough colors. Okay, if they have a low resolution, then what I'm going to have is a blurry image. So maybe it has a really high dynamic range, but it's blurry. So you could still use it, but to just create a mood, but not necessarily to have really sharp reflections on your windows or metals, okay? Of course, a high resolution one is going to be more heavy to compute, but it's still the better option. So once I have my HDRI here, I'm going to add it exactly like before to the slot, and I'm going to make it an instance. Okay, what I want to do now is to map it, okay? So the mapping type, if I want to go to the 3D Max standard, I have to pick this one, okay? And I define it down here in the coordinates. Or I can just go and say spherical, and it's defined by my V-Ray HDRI mapping. And then I can control if it flips horizontally or vertically. If I move it actually horizontally, for example, then I'm actually rotating the map and probably the location of the sun, okay? So if I would actually go on 3D Max standard, then I have to go down here to the coordinates and make it at enviro, and then say that it's a spherical environment, and it works kind of like the same, and then I can work with it down here. Okay, so let's go back. So basically the problem here is that obviously I'm seeing this through a camera in which I'm not controlling how much light I have. So in order for me to see this, I would have to control my camera. Let's say I'm just gonna do it quite fast with my environment. For that I press 8. Okay. And I have some exposure control here. I'm going to use V-Ray exposure control. And I'm just going to put my f-stop number higher. Okay, and probably the shutter speed also a lot higher. So to go there, I go to rendering, exposure control or environment, and I can change that. But I have the same control on my camera, and I anyway want to define my camera more precisely. So this is just now for us to see how it's working, okay?